All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Q&A for the program, shorts program Bonding, part of this year's San Francisco Indie Fest 2022. We are very fortunate to have some great filmmakers with us here that got selected and got their films in. Hi, filmmakers.
Hey,
Wow.
Hey.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. Hey, real quick, where are you guys calling from? Dan, where are you?
I'm in London.
Madeline?
I'm in Harwichport, Massachusetts.
Wow, all right. Mass and Molly.
I'm in LA, but I'm from San Francisco.
Oh, right on. We're calling from San
Yeah.
Francisco. Good to meet you. Hey,
Good
Molly,
to
I got
meet
an
you.
idea. Maybe just mute yourself when you're not talking and see if that
Great.
reduces the fan. Excellent. You can stay on though if you want to interject. I don't want to mute you guys. It's now too quiet. Anyways, real quick, go around the room and introduce yourself. Molly, I'll start with you. Just tell us who you are, your role in your film, and what your film was, and briefly about it. Real quick.
Hi, I'm Molly Ratterman. Writer director. I also star in the film The Cosmopolitan West. It's about a female outlaw who leaves her ex partner in crime, Boot, to rob one final bank to afford a homestead of her own. So it's a lot of fun.
Right on. Thank you, Molly. And Madeline, how about yourself?
My name is Maddie Downs, and I was the writer, co-writer, director, and part-time animal wrangler for A Home Invasion.
And what was the dog's name again? I remember.
In the film, his name was Cooper, but to
Cooper.
keep, art separate from life, his real name is Scoober.
Right on. Great to watch him. And Dan, how about yourself? Introduce yourself and a quick thing about your movie.
So I'm Dan Bronstein. I'm the writer and director of All the Glitters, which is a short drama fantasy starring Sophia Miles and Alec Newman. And it's about a teenager who steals a handbag from a rich woman, but then discovers that her life isn't as rosy as it seems, and they have more in common than he realizes.
Well, congratulations to all of you. Really well done, well made films, and wonderful acting. I can't say enough about them. Really superb. Let me ask about the acting. How did you uh, elicit the performances out of your actors? Molly, I'll ask you. How did you do the dual role of lead actor and director? How is that to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty common theme for a lot of actors to do that these days. I definitely think it actually helps because you don't really have a lot of time to think. So for me, directing and acting go together pretty well. Our shoot was really quick shoot, as with most indies. So we didn't get a lot of rehearsals, but luckily, a lot of these characters, because it's in the Western world, I was able to kind of let the actors bring a lot to the character that already existed in them. So we honestly had a lot of fun with it. Did rehearsals at night, that sort of a thing. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't know if there's an easy, quick way to answer exactly how I worked with each individual actor because each actor is different. But I think it's just finding a way for them to connect to these different characters and again have fun with it. So
You were the writer as well, right?
I was, yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So maybe as you're writing it, you're just already kind of, for one thing, you're memorizing the lines because you're the screenwriter, but then you just come to the set and you're kind of already in the character's head.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. I mean, it's helpful when you bounce off the other actors, seeing the perspective from, the character from a new perspective, just because sometimes when you're so involved in it, you're not seeing something about the character that maybe a different actor would bring. So, yeah, I definitely think I wrote this about a real life outlaw, and so I think I really connected with her just personally.
Mhm.
And from there, it was a lot easier to bring that to the table. It's funny, I wrote it, but it's a totally different hat for me. So I didn't have anything memorized, and that was always the like, oh shit, I actually have to memorize my film. So I actually showed up to set most of the time being like, yeah, I know it. Oh my god, no, I don't know it. So yeah, so it did help as far as character work, but
Right.
yeah, not memorization. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Uh, And Madeline, how about you? How'd you get the wonderful performances out of your players?
I mean, they're very talented, and Evan and Jess have worked together for many years, and they were in a Meisner program together. So they're used to screaming at each other from across rooms for the sake of art. We actually had an older actor in place as our lead, as the husband, but his wife gave birth to their third child, and shooting during COVID in theory versus in practice when a new baby arrives changed his mind. So Evan stepped in from the neighbor role to the husband role, and my actual neighbor, who's a talented actor, stepped in. And I just feel like everybody really understood what we were trying to do. We rehearsed a lot before we arrived on set because we were doing night shoots, and you don't want to be working things out at 4 a.m. So there was a lot of rehearsal, not a lot of revision, but a lot of really good targeted revision based on feedback and kind of how things went in the room.
Right.
And I'm just really lucky that they're really talented actors and I get to take credit for it. How nice for me.
Well, it looks like it was a fun script, and it looks like it might have been a fun thing to perform for them as well.
I think they enjoyed it. And if they didn't, they had the courtesy to not tell me, which is all I ask.
And how come you were shooting at night?
It was important for the story that the sun was setting and that night was falling on these rather paranoid people. And the house that we were able to afford just was made of windows, and it was going to be either a lot of work to make it night or a lot of work to stay awake all night. So we went for the latter, and it was a real trooper. The sun was coming up at one point, but I think our colorist was able to sort of hide that from us, which I really appreciated.
I didn't notice.
Great. I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you so much.
It's because I was engrossed in your story and your characters. And Dan, how was it working with your actors? I was hooked from them. Maybe it's what voice is it? Is it a British voice? I can't remember. Australian voice?
Yeah, there's a lot of British accents in it. So the kid at the beginning with his voiceover, he's from up north, so he's got a northern accent.
I was hooked.
Tobias got a London accent, and Alex got a Scottish accent. So it's kind of a mix. All credit mainly obviously goes to the actors. They're really good. The two young actors, this was their first film, and they were fantastic, really, really professional and everything. From my point of view, I just did, when I'm directing, I always do like an actor's pass for myself on the script before rehearsal. So I just literally go through every line and as if I was, taking the role myself and try and work out the intention behind it. It's more just covering myself. So when I get into those conversations with the actors in rehearsal, that I've got answers, but it helped a lot in rehearsal, but they were just great. They knew what they were doing. They were very professional.
Are you an actor yourself?
No.
Wow, that's an interesting technique. I mean, I always reread my script after I write it, but it's more for a writer's perspective. I didn't think about it from an actor's perspective. I like that technique.
Yeah, I mean, I started off as a screenwriter, so I'm initially like more of a screenwriter, and I've only, I've directed a few shorts and everything, and it's only now that I'm really pushing the whole directing side of things. So when I look at my scripts now, and I know I'm going to be directing it, yeah, it just makes sense to do that. I mean, it's probably a good thing to do if you're developing a script anyway. But it's, for me, when I'm directing, it's like doing a shot list and a storyboard. It's just that extra bit of preparation.
Right. So Madeline, I'll start with you on this one. Inspiration for the film. I think I kind of remember a little bit. Maybe there's more to it, but what was your inspiration for this idea?
Yeah.
This film?
So our film is loosely, for legal and real reasons, loosely inspired by that couple in St. Louis that stood on the lawn of their ridiculous mansion with their guns drawn as protesters very peacefully walked right past them. It had nothing to do with them. And Evan and I talk a lot about politics. My co-writer, Evan Marshall, and I, that's just sort of all we talk about anyway. And we were so upset at these people. And we also could not get over what losers they had to have been that they made this whole event that just walked past them completely about them. And they'd centered themselves entirely. And that people just expressing their frustration with America was a threat on their home. And so we couldn't stop thinking about how this was probably maybe the best day they've had individually and as a couple in years. And that, to be crass, they probably smooched harder than they had smooched in many years because of the event. And we just couldn't get over how selfish, how silly they must be.
How
And
stranger than like truth is stranger than fiction.
absolutely.
I mean,
And so we couldn't, yeah, we just really couldn't leave it alone.
yeah,
So this is
and
where
it's
that came
almost
from.
like your film was so, for lack of a better word, over the top. It had to be to top what happened in real life.
Sure. Yeah. There wasn't, yeah, it was hard to take it further or to get in any sillier than they were. So we took it in a different, more sort of metaphorical direction because,
Right.
you know, they wrote the best script of all and they already did it. So we had to do something else.
Fun inspiration. Molly, I know I think you're going to do a feature film, right?
Yeah. So we're expanding it into a feature film. Scripts all done, producers attached. So we're sort of in the mixture of the casting finance world at the moment. So it's a interesting new world and very exciting, but a very much hurry up and wait. Yeah.
So, yeah, is this your first film?
The short or yes, that's probably my like 15th film,
Okay.
something
But you
around
did
there.
the
Yeah.
short. The short is kind of like a precursor or the fundraiser vehicle for the feature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but then what was the inspiration for the idea?
Yeah, I during COVID, I I already love history, but I had a lot more time to read about it. So I came across a article about a female outlaw named Pearl Hart, and she wore men's clothing when she robbed stagecoaches, and then when she was caught, she was featured in the Cosmopolitan magazine in 1889. She was wearing her men's clothing, holding a shotgun. And spewing a lot of feminist rhetoric, and she sort of became this feminist icon of the time. A lot of contention around her for many reasons that are pretty obvious. So I thought this was amazing. I grew up a massive tomboy. A lot of women have, and I think a lot of women have sort of abandoned their authenticity of what that is to meet societal standards, so that you're appealing to men and all these different things. So I was just really inspired by that story in history in general. And how that could be very relative to current times. So it had a lot more to give than the short, and I knew that. But at the time, I only had enough money in my savings to make a short. And I read that article. I wrote the short the next day, and 2.5 weeks later, we shot the short. So it was the only time frame I had to have the amazing talent that I did have, that casting crew. A lot of them had Netflix shows coming up and all kinds of much more important and better paying projects than mine. And so I had this very small window to make this project that I knew was something really near and dear to me. So that's sort of the inspiration, was this one woman, and then I sort of just expanded it into its own world. So now we've got like the Cosmo world, essentially.
Well, I'm glad you made it, and I can't wait to see the feature version of it. I think it's
Thanks.
Yeah, it's kind of a trending theme, if you will. There's this one popular show, HBO, but you know what it is, not Gentleman Jack or something like that, but it's an excellent show.
I think that's the name. I think that's exactly the name. Yeah. And I think that like came out like a month after I shot this, and I was like, oh no, it's like a similar thing. And then I go, you know what? No, it's actually just making space. We need a lot more stories like this. So we're just making space for more stories.
I think it'll benefit your film
market. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I truly do. And Dan, how about you? What was your inspiration?
I wanted to tell a story about domestic violence, but it's a very dark subject, and I was trying to find a way of doing it in an entertaining way, so it wouldn't depress an audience. So that's how I could kind of come up with the fantasy element of it. But basically, I just wanted to use that as a theme to link these two stories of these two people from across the class divide, basically, and just show. I mean, the title's All the Glitters, and one of the messages is that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and that everyone's got a story, and you just got to talk and get to know people, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I think you did. It's a nice reminder to put yourself in other people's shoes, or maybe think about their POV before you judge them. And how challenging was it to shoot? You had a couple different locations. Molly had the great outdoors, if you will. Madeline, a little bit more controlled, one location. But how was the location challenges for you, Dan?
It was very, very hard because I had to. It was a 4-day shoot initially. The actress Sophia got ill on one day, so we had to do another day. But 2 of those days were in London, and I had to shut down 5 streets and have traffic management because we had a car and a bit of a car stunt thing, and it was quite big and ambitious and everything, and expensive, and it rained a lot, and it was really challenging. But that's why I did it, because like Molly, I'm trying to set up my first feature, and every short that I do, I want to push myself for myself to know that I can do it, but also to show to financiers and producers that I can do it. So I wanted to do put some things in there that I hadn't done before that was challenging. So even though it's not a proof of concept of my feature, they can see that I can do those things, basically.
Sure. I think you demonstrated that. You should make your feature now.
Yeah, I think so.
Madeline, besides animal wrangling and daylight, challenges for you?
Well, I think maybe the statute of limitations is up. We couldn't get a permit to save our lives. We could not get a permit. So we were just flying like little outlaws ourselves, which was great. Every moment we got in the can, I was like, okay, good. But then it felt like, well, now if we get shut down, we're even further in, it'll be harder to match. So we were so worried. We're in kind of a nice neighborhood in Sherman Oaks, and it just very stressful. And our last shot was on the street. And we were so scared. And a runner, as she was running, asked if she could cross. So not only were they welcoming, they asked if they could stay out of the way on their morning jogs. It was very sweet of the people of Sherman Oaks. We were also a little worried. We did have guns near windows. So if the police were called, they were non-working. They were never working firearms. But you'd hate to have the police come visit you while someone's holding a fake AR-15.
Yeah.
And our one actor, no one told me this until after we wrapped, which at the time I was like, you guys could have told me. And now I'm like, thank God they didn't tell me. One actor did get hit by a car the day before the second day of shooting on his bicycle.
Yeah.
And so he was a person who was in literal physical pain, acting like he wasn't in pain. So I couldn't tell, on the floor, writhing like he was in physical pain due to the circumstances of the script. It was very meta. Brecht would have loved it. But yeah, there were lots of little challenges, but honestly, people did really well. And I'm very grateful for everyone's good faith and good work.
Well, filmmaking in general is a challenge, right? But
you try to control for everything, and then your actor gets hit by a car and you're like, well, I can't control for that. So
Molly, challenges?
I guess to echo off of that, you do try and plan for absolutely everything. We shot half of it in Alabama Hills, which is obviously great outdoors, as you said. Half of it on a Western film lot, so it was like a very controlled environment. That part went great, amazing, fine. The part out in the wilderness, the first 12 hours, we had someone go into anaphylactic shock and almost die in the hospital. We had fire come through, we had all the smoke come through, and one of our cast members also had a lung reaction to it. It ruined all of our locations. We had a windstorm that blew down all the cell towers. We got the key to our production car lost, had to abandon the car literally in the middle of the desert. Key was never found. I had an allergic reaction. My throat closed up. The PA ran the car into another car.
I guess I said challenges. I was only thinking one, but holy cow.
Yeah. And that was just the first. I mean, that's not even the end of the first 12 hours. I was in the hospital all night. I had 30 minutes of sleep, and we went into 18 hours because, my day still goes on as a director after we're done shooting. So I think I was up. I mean, if you don't count the 30 minutes I slept, I think I was up for nearly 48 hours. So it was definitely a pretty tough shoot in general, but that first bit was pretty gnarly, and it just kept going. And that was we shot for about 2.5 days in the desert, and I would say a good 75% of that part of the shoot, rattlesnakes. We had 2 rattlesnakes. Someone almost get bit by a rattlesnake. We had one coiled up. I mean, it didn't end. And you know what? I'll be honest though, we still had a really good time, which is insane. I was losing my mind by the end of, day 2 when I'm up for however many hours. And I mean, just losing my mind in the sense of like, my body was just like shutting down sort of on me. Our horses, they were the best people ever that we got the horses from, but unfortunately brought horses that didn't want to be apart from each other. So it would buck me off of it every time we would separate the horses. And anyway, it was pretty wild time, but everybody, the cast and crew really came through. I mean, I'll be honest, without them, obviously this wouldn't have been able to happen, but everyone kept a good attitude. Everyone showed up and did as much work as they could through really gnarly conditions. And it was still, 100 degrees out, and we're dealing with a fire and all the above. So kudos to them mostly. And also those people, if they're still working, and they are very much still working, they're clearly true storytellers, because to go through that and still want to do film and still want to make a movie, I mean, blessings to you guys. So I problem solving at its finest. I love everybody who contributed to that. But I will say it was a tough shoot.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger or makes your movie better, right?
Yeah. Well, and it did. I mean, we made choices much, much smarter about what was true to the story rather than, just, this would be a really cool shot, and all those kind of things. We didn't have that luxury, so to speak.
Since I'm on you, let me ask this to all you, because I'm a filmmaker too. You're on set, and because of time crunch, behind schedule, you start cutting things, you cut scenes, and you had a lot of challenges. Did you have things you had to cut, and were disappointed by cutting them, or sad to let them go, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the moment, definitely sad to cut. I was at the hospital making script changes at 4 a.m. She's my best friend as well. She was, anyway. And so, I mean, there were things I had to cut just because, we showed back up to set right as like the day started. We get back from the hospital and everyone's like, oh yeah, kind of like yawning, stretching, like, waking up, and they're like, well, we're ready to start the shoot day. And I'm like, oh, I just kind of like, we're making cuts to this, cuts to that, like all the above. So anyway, yes, there were a lot of cuts, but of course it always makes it made it tighter, stronger, better, all the above. So
as a viewer, I don't notice, it's just the tightness is
exactly. Yeah.
Madeline, did you have some disappointments that you had to get rid of some cuts or make some choices?
Honestly, no. To the opposite of Dan's point, it was my first effort as a director, and I was trying to not challenge myself at all. I was just trying to like get through and learn what I needed to learn. And I also had a really incredible team, because I've come from writing and production, and I've acted here and there, but directing is quite new to me. And so I was constantly tempted to cut things. And so my AD, Aaron, and our producer, Ilayla, and the NDP, Travis, were very good about just like pulling me aside and saying, we will tell you when it's time to cut things, stop cutting things. And our editor, Erin Kelly Smith, was on set as our script supervisor. And so she was so brilliant being there, able to see, what she's going to use, what's in the can already. So if it was a crunch for time, she would sort of game it out with me and let me know where we were at with the edit.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to sort of hope or pray. We really knew pretty well what was going on. And again, we had one location, pretty simple script, because I don't think I could have handled it if we were trying to cut stuff in the moment.
Great first project, and it's you hired the right crew, and they're kind of thinking story project first, and they're not just say, cut that for time's sake. They're preserving the story.
Yeah, she was really, really incredible. Hire her, everyone, pay her lots of money for everything forever.
Dan, any cuts or disappointments?
I mean, it was a very tight schedule, so we were doing like 30 to 40 setups in a day. Thankfully my DP was very fast, but because of typical production things going wrong, and time and getting things set up, I had to cut stuff. I didn't get as much coverage with the car in the street as I wanted. So we sort of just fixed it in the edit, as you do, and in some ways it's probably better, because it forces you to be a bit innovative and tell a story a different way. And there's some late nights that we had to make choices of what we're going to do, and we ditched some stuff, and it's probably better for doing that. So, I mean, that's where you learn the craft in those moments. Like, I mean, what Molly went through is just ridiculous. I mean, that sounds like 10 short films in one. The
Yeah,
problem
I
is,
thought the same thing. It's like, hey, that's a movie within the movie.
yeah. But the thing is, just going through that, like you say, make you stronger. It just makes you just a better director. And if you can deal, that's the whole point of doing shorts. Was it just like they say, cutting the cloth or whatever? That's how you learn it all. So then when you get to a feature, you're always going to be learning, but you're prepared and you've dealt with
All right,
some of
Dan.
the
All right,
basic
so
stuff.
you've inspired me. So, what did you learn after having him done 15 shorts? So, what's something new you learned?
What did I learn? I over prepared.
How so?
I mean, my storyboard was just ridiculously detailed in terms of the way I studied graphic design, so I really did like kind of real life kind of storyboarding pictures
Right.
and everything, and I didn't look at it once during the shoot,
Ah,
but it was the blueprint in my head, so I will still always storyboard, but not to that detail. And the same with the shot list. I really went into a lot of detail on the shot list, and we didn't really look at it because I knew what I needed to get. So it's just preparing, but I think when you get to the location, everything changes basically.
yeah, for sure.
Even if you know roughly what the location is and you do a tech recce,
Right.
everything changes on the day, and then things get, and that's where you learn. That's where you have to be innovative. But yeah, I wouldn't go into as much detail in the storyboard and the shot list next time.
I guess you can over prepare, but what I'm hearing is you learn that you can do it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're ready for a feature. Madeline,
Yeah.
what did you learn as Miss First Time Director?
I learned that directing is hard. No, honestly, I think the biggest takeaway I have is Evan and I have such a shared language from so many years of working together that bringing new people in to that shared language requires a level of a welcoming spirit and an attitude of openness, because there were moments where, the words that Evan and I would say to, for example, Travis, our DP, we knew exactly what the other one was talking about. And he's a very visual learner and kind of a gestalt thinker. He understands the whole before he understands a part, which is not how I process information. So I learned to print things out, print out examples of the lighting we're going for, things like that, to sort of back up our shorthand with a different type of information delivery. And that sort of lesson was really helpful for bringing in different teams as well. Just kind of trying to meet everyone on their level and get them on our level, but also as long as we're speaking the same language at the end of the day, I don't care whose level we're actually on. So I think that was our biggest takeaway.
Yeah, communication is so important on set. Molly, you learn anything?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think all those, what Dan and Madeline said are all extremely true. Lessons. I think on this one, I think the biggest lesson was imposter syndrome can go fuck itself. Just in the sense that I think that I've done a different work, and you always think, well, it's not Scorsese, it's not this, all these different things. But dealing with the circumstances we had and what, all the things that kind of came in front of us, who knows, maybe, the big cats have dealt with all those kind of things. I'm sure they have in their own right. But I think it made me go, that's the lesson, is that I need to realize that I can handle any situation, someone nearly dying and all the above. It was sort of this, like, you're ready for it. Stop having this thought process that there's something you're missing, or all the above. I think that was the biggest lesson for me, amongst a million others. But personally, that was a really big one for me.
Yeah. I personally think all three of you are ready for feature film. And you know what? Time is flying with you guys. I'm enjoying talking with you guys. But let me just have you sign off because I got to go on to another Q&A. What's the last thing you want to say, or if you want to tell us where we can find out more about you and your filmmaking? Molly, go ahead.
So, Molly Ratterman. My Instagram is mollykinsale37. And yeah, please come follow along. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait for, tell me what you think about the film, good and bad. I'm always here to learn. So thank you for watching, and thanks for the support, SF and UFAS. Appreciate it.
And Madeline, how about you?
I think thankfully this short film isn't going anywhere. We're not doing a feature. I think we've explored the topic, but Evan and I are writing a feature called Fair Trade, and it's doing very well in pitch competitions and script competitions. So we're really looking forward to that. So you can follow us at A Home Invasion on Instagram, and we'll start making noise about Fair Trade on there. And just text me. Let's be friends, everyone.
Right on. Let's be friends. Dan, any last words?
I'm on social, Dan Bronzite, one word, and I'm posting, having a lot of fun at festivals at the moment, and it's a shame I can't be at SF Indie Fest, but I hope everyone has a great time there and watches some great films, and then follow me and start the journey with me to the feature.
Yeah, right on. Well, hey, that's all the time we have. Thanks to our filmmakers. Congratulations, you guys, for making your wonderful films and getting in our film festival.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
Q&A,
you.
Jason. We
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
One more time, and I hope to meet all three of you in person someday.
Yeah, me
I
too.
hope so too.
All right, that's it for this Q&A. Thanks for supporting indie film. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.